I created this honestly to keep me
Kind of
aligned,
excited. What do you mean ritual?
to keep me aligned, keep me honest. You know, life can happen so quickly, things are moving so fast, and I think everybody needs like some like rhythms and rituals you have that you're just doing consistently. So in me showing you this, I'm not saying you need to follow this to the T. I'll give you a digital version so you can put it in your iPad as well. But I'm telling you, I follow it and it helps me because even I'm a goal setter. It's just life just throws things off, and because we're not robots. I'm just going to keep reiterating that you will never have a perfect year with your goals or anything that you set. And so this is just to help the chaos, bring it in a little bit smaller, and to really kind of help bring some rhythm to how you're thinking through all the things you're going after. So I break this up into daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly. So the idea is, what does a daily touch point look like? What does weekly touch points look like? What do monthly touch points? What is quarterly? What is yearly? And to really be able to have something where you can look back and say, this was my year. That is probably what gets me most excited about stuff like this, is to be able to tell a story of my year and not just, oh yeah, my year is great because I completed this goal. Life is so much more than that. We have, I mean, my goodness, so many hours spent in our lives in the year, and we usually have like a sentence or two to describe our year.
I can't even remember, right? I think that's like another awesome aspect of this is like if you ask me what I was doing in 2015, I have no idea. Like I have to search my phone photos, right? Like, I think that's just a cool idea in and of itself, regardless of tracking, holding yourself accountable, being able to reflect, iterate. It's cool, man.
So we're gonna walk through this, and there's the reason why it's so thick is because I give it's repeated. So this is like a year version.
Gotcha. Cool.
So the picture is you have daily reminder, weekly reflection, monthly recap, quarterly review, yearly refresher. So a minute a day, 15 minutes a week, 30 minutes a month, an hour plus a quarter, and then 24 hours for a year. And it doesn't take a lot of time. It's actually very easy for me to do. The hardest one is usually the quarterly. So hours, it takes me, I always take a half day for it. But this is just a really helpful tool for me. And if you notice the daily reminder, whether someone's using this or not, I just read my statements, read my goals. That's my daily reminder. Something that you've been doing already is I read my statements, read my goals because it reminds me this is who I want to be and this is what I'm currently working on.
Frequency, do you wait for like your quarterly review to add or update your goals, or do you kind of do that on the fly?
So typically my goals, yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I usually wait. I mean, to the point now, like sometimes I'll take things off in the midst of it, but yeah, I usually wait.
Okay.
So this is my daily. I only put one for the weekly, but because I do mine on my iPad. But this is just a weekly reflection, and it's just asking some specific questions related to just even the reflections we're having in a week. You know, what was your biggest win? What was your biggest growth opportunity? What do you want to spend more time doing, less time doing? Feedback you have for yourself. Do you feel prepared for next week? Why not? Just stepping back for a second and thinking about your week, which I wish more people did.
It's kind of why I'm so bad when you ask me about like the growth and death culture examples. Like it's just so hard to think past what I was doing an hour ago.
Yeah.
You know, it really is such a good process, and it's interesting because the last two Sundays, Sunday evening, is when I've started to do something similar to this without the really helpful prompts. And it's like, what did I do good? Like it's hard. It's like what we talk about with insights. Like it's really difficult to figure out like what was your big win, and that's in and of itself, I think, motivating.
Mm-hmm.
If you were into growth culture,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be kind of dismotivating if you're a death culture person, but it's hard. It's not easy.
And the more you do this, the better you get at it.
Yeah.
You know. And so my weekly, I do mine on Saturdays, and so I'm always thinking about Sunday through Saturday. Like, okay, how was the week? And it's just a good, slow, take my time processing through it. And it's fun, and I can look back at my journal. I can look back at my parties. That's why I usually look for my biggest win, and it's just helpful to see. Okay.
And you have tell me more about your process a little bit too. So you use your digital note app,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's where your reflection is, your journal.
Mm-hmm.
And then this, do you keep paper or do you do that within the same?
It's in the same
iPad?
thing.
Okay.
The reason I like that because I can just add sheets easily.
Gotcha. So you'll have your journal open, and then you have this open, and you just kind of go back and forth between the documents.
Yep.
Flip through the. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Do you handwrite on your iPad journal, or do you type handwrite?
So for my journal, I handwrite. For this, I type these in,
Gotcha.
but the rest I handwrite.
Okay, cool.
Okay, monthly recap. So I love this one because this kind of like leads into some of the quarterly stuff, but it's really helping you kind of like not just like how was your week, but like really how are you doing. So thinking about how you manage your stress, how you manage your relationships, your health and fitness, um, how have you been with your goals and habits, biggest takeaways from this month, areas you like to make some changes you would like to make next month. So it's kind of like a bigger step back. Like this one I love. It's like during the week it's a little bit more tactical, but as you get into the month, you're really thinking about how am I doing? What am I neglecting? What am I doing really well? And then what are my takeaways? What do I maybe need to change?
It's crazy. It's June, like
Right?
I really kind of like what I'm looking at on this too, and especially like with like this monthly transition to like by the time it's the first Monday, it's the 5th. Like this is gonna be helpful, man. I'm excited to do this because months just roll off.
Yeah.
There's really no intentional reflection, appreciation, and then obviously the changes that you're gonna make in terms of focusing on stuff.
Mm-hmm. What I always tell people is like to schedule these, because it can get lost in translation. Like this is another thing to do, so I have to schedule mine, and I already have my quarterly reviews mapped out. Saturday, I already have my routine where this is in there. So scheduling is helpful, and part of my daily, I do this. So if it's a part of your flow, it's really easy, but I'm going to get to why I love this so much. So this is monthly. This one has 3 of them in there, and then quarterly. Quarterly is my favorite. It is my favorite. I love taking time to do a quarterly review, and I sometimes will like do a half day somewhere, go to a different place. It's awesome. And I'm going to start doing this with people. The more I get into this, I've done this with some clients, but it's like it starts off with a health check, review your reflections, review your priorities, review, update capacity for growth. I'll show you delegate, automate, eliminate lists, plan for your goals for next quarter, June, and set goals for following 2 quarters. So it helps you kind of make adjustments and changes, but it also gives you an idea of what was my quarter like. I think it's been so freaking helpful for me. So the areas specifically, that's why I was saying like you give great segues. Like you were talking about it earlier. I was like, well, we're about to talk about that. But the first one is a health check, which this really leans into the monthly review. So you can go back to the monthly review to see how am I doing health wise, like mental health, emotional health, physical health, purpose. Gives you definitions, and then you're able to rate yourself. So it's just like a step back for the quarter to really see how have I done in these areas.
Gotcha.
And then you rate yourself. All right. Reflection review. This is where you're able to look at the reflections that you've done in the past 90 days and just kind of see how many times did you reflect? What was insightful? Some common themes. This does take a little bit of time, but it's so good.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it's one of my favorite things to do. At first, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to do this because it's going to take me time to go back. But every time I go back, I learn something new about myself. I'm able to think about things I want to change for next quarter. It is like so good. Same thing with priorities because I'm thinking about the days I was productive. And why were those days productive? You know, I mean, that's something we don't necessarily think about. We set all these priorities and we complete them. Were they good priorities? If we had a productive day, why are we saying it's productive? And just to be able to answer these questions and rate like how we are, it's just a great way to understand where we are when it comes to priority setting. Okay, you with me so far?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I like days were why were the days productive? Like such a good prompt. I haven't thought about that.
It's so helpful because then you'll know like, okay, these types of things I feel productive, or this is productive, or you might be able to say I don't really know if it was productive. So it just opens the can of worms to how well you're doing or how you need to improve, and I love that. This is my favorite. So this is this is progress reflection. So this is where you write out your statements and you're able to ask yourself specific questions. How many of your goals are connected to this statement? How many of your challenges projects are connected to this statement? What is the consistency of the habits or routines connected to this statement? And how many priorities have you completed connected to this statement? So this is you going back, but it is so freaking rewarding because I'm like, I'll look at something, I'm like, yo, heck yeah, I'm becoming more like this person. You know, it just it fuels me when I do this. So I think this again will take some time, but just to know like, oh man, like being present, here's some priorities I've set towards this, here's a goal I'm working on towards this, like it will fuel you, and it'll also expose gaps to see, well, I'm not working on anything here. Maybe that's something I need to prioritize for next quarter. What am I going to do? Do I need to implement a habit? Do I have space for it? So it just gets your mind thinking a little bit more around these things. And this is one of my favorite things to do because I always want to go back to who I want to be. And I want to make sure the things that I'm doing in my day to day reflect who I want to be more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, even just knowing that this is on the docket. Like, how, have you had a really bad quarter since you started doing this, with the exception of ones where something horrible happened that was completely outside of your control?
Um,
It always pumps you up.
Always pumps me up.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say.
I mean, there's the only thing I notice is like, well, I'm not really doing anything towards this. I need to really focus on this.
I'm thinking about that right now.
But it's okay. Like, you know,
You delete the statement.
yeah. Delete it. Or, I just like, maybe, and sometimes I'm even like, I'm not going to work on that next quarter. It might be 2 quarters from now. And that's fine. But just the awareness of this and to be able to see it, it fires me up.
It's interesting. So like the one we joke about all the time is like ferociously present,
Mm-hmm.
and like I keep wanting to like think about like, am I doing anything to be more present? But there's actually a lot of things that I'm doing right now to get more present, which is interesting. But if it wasn't a statement, I wouldn't be thinking about it. And I'm even intentionally adding to that list of things as I learn about different ways to be more present.
Mm-hmm. My favorite question on this is the last one because it is very real to go back and look through your priorities and say, I say this is important, and I actually probably think I'm doing really good at this, and I go back and look at my priorities, but I don't have any priorities on it. So it's like this exposure, but it's good because it doesn't mean you don't care about it, but the only way for these statements to come to life is if we bring it into our life.
How often do you pull a priority out of thin air? Like, you have your goals, your challenges, your habits, routines, priorities, and then like, do you just pull them off of the list? Is it that well done in advance? Because I feel like for me, I'm pretty much determining what my priorities are that day, and I'm not looking at my goals yet. I think I have to spend a little bit more time like breaking those goals down. Like I mentioned, 100 rows right now for ABC, but I'd love to get to a point where like I actually have priorities that are part of a backlog that I just need to pull off the highest priority priorities, and then when there's none left, I've accomplished my goal.
I have something like that. I do a priority dump every week. I have a list of priorities that I'm like,
So that's
okay.
part of your weekly review. Is that kind of like a
No, that's what I do on Sundays.
okay?
So that's just like kind of the start of my week. All right, what are all the priorities I want to attack this week? And then realistically, can I attack all these? What does that look like? And I base that upon the type of week I'm also having.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've, in a good way, gone full circle. Like before I came into this, I think I had a little bit better of a long term view, but that long term view wasn't aligned to who I wanted to be. now I've kind of reset that, but I've been focusing on the day's priorities. And then as those goals get broken out, I feel myself having a more well planned out week. I think a lot of it has to do with just the age of the things I'm working on too. And so I think as those get older, there's a further out view and vision and real trajectory that's been helpful. But I see it coming together more, but it is something I have to spend more time writing out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's been the best part about breaking these goals out and seeing them every day and working on them. And like I said, it keeps getting bigger and bigger, but that process is something I have to get better at too.
And it takes time. Like I have a 10-year goal, and I'm working towards it. And there's priorities. There's with a 10-year goal, a 5-year goal. There are goals within the goals.
What is it?
You know what I'm saying? That's 100,000 liters.
I love that, man.
So like that's broken down into different things, different strategies, and you're slowly breaking it down. But if you have a bigger goal, it's going to have multiple goals in there as well, which is something we haven't talked about, but you probably get that picture.
I like it a lot, man. I think I have to make sure I work my way down, and then I'll come back to
Yeah.
blowing them up even bigger.
You're doing great, and I think this is just you're getting a foundation, and I don't think you need to rush it. I mean, you might feel the need to like get things quick, but I think just you getting a flow, I think is going to be really really good.
I think just like talking this out with coach too, like I think we'll finish out this quarter, and then I'm gonna have a priority, or I guess I'm gonna have a project that I'm gonna work on as priorities between now and the end of the month to be ready to go for next quarter. I think that'll be like realistic timelines, and again, because it is a lot of work and effort, but it's effort well spent to break these in. Right now, like I have a ton of projects, but I think breaking those out, and then also just getting a better appreciation, as I was mentioning, for all the other challenges and projects that don't necessarily align to my goals, but things I have to make sure I do this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be helpful.
It's good.
So hold me accountable. End of June.
End of June. I like it. Okay. First, automate, delegate, eliminate lists. I love doing this every quarter. It is the hardest thing for me to do because I usually don't want to eliminate anything. And delegate is interesting, especially because I don't have employees yet. So I gotta get creative.
You gotta get a dog, man.
And so automate. So I think to take a step and think about this, it may start off harder, but what you'll probably realize, and that's one reason why I asked the question earlier, is there's going to be things that you're doing that you probably should get rid of because you don't have the margin. Even though you want to believe you have the margin for it, you don't. And so this is going to help you start to see, is there something I'm doing right now that I can pay somebody else to do? Like, it can be automated.
Yeah.
So something I can do right now that I don't really need to do. I'm just doing it because I'm used to it and I'm comfortable. And to be able to like think about that, there might only be like a couple things on the list. It could really save you maybe 5 hours a week.
I'm actually really excited to do this. I should have shared this with you and the growth culture stuff too. And we talked about it last episode too, around like augmenting the discipline principle to be a man of my word. But like there's a group chat about going golfing and going to the driving range, and it's been so hard because I keep wanting to be like, and again, I want to spend time with my friends. I want to get good at golf, but I was like, next year. Let me know if you guys want to grab lunch next week. But I think I'm consciously remembering that I shouldn't be committing to things that aren't aligned to who I want to be. Like, there's nothing in there about being a great golfer. But it's hard, right? Like, there's a lot of temptations out there. So I'm already doing this, I think, unintentionally. And the automate and delegate, we've talked a lot about it through this series of opportunities I have there. It's exciting, man. I'm excited to do this.
Good stuff. Okay, we're almost getting through this. And then we'll jump to the yearly. Okay, capacity for growth. This is just an example, but it'll show you the picture. I love thinking about this because every quarter it looks a little bit different for what our mental capacity is like business as usual. So when you see at zero capacity, that's just saying I have no margin in my brain to invest in really anything else. So this part is really saying business as usual. What's the capacity I have period? Do I have 50% capacity, meaning like I can probably invest more time into other things? Or is it like at 80%, 90%, where it's like my schedule's so packed that I just don't have the margin to invest in other things. So I like people thinking about this first because then we can talk about, all right, well, then now that you know your capacity or what you think your capacity is going to be like as far as your mental capacity, let's talk about how much investment you want to put in your growth and development. So if you're saying you have zero capacity, and I see this a lot, people are like, man, I have very, very little space. But they're like, I want to invest about 10, 15% in my growth and development. I'm like, that's not realistic. Like, how? So it's good because all of this is, these are your goals. These are this goals, challenges, habits, routines, priorities. That's what you're investing in. And so you got to think about this. And I want you to think in the terms of hours, 5% of a week. Like, how many hours do you really have to invest in things outside of business as usual? Mm-hmm. And I think that will just kind of help you see. And I want you to be able to actually put hours to it. If you're going after something, how much time is this really going to take out my week? Okay. And then start to see, do I have that time? So that you can scale back a little bit or add more to it.
So like some of the stuff too that I think we've worked into routines and things too. So like growth and development for me, I'd love to almost automate it, right? So like obviously like the health and wellness stuff's pretty straightforward, but like the reading, meditation, mindfulness practices, like those types of things too, I feel like are BAU, mm-hmm. but obviously impacting my growth and development too in a positive way.
I would do anything new here.
Cool. Okay.
So business as usual also is just things that you already have flowing in your life, and this is anything that you're trying to add.
Yeah. So a lot of and we talked a little bit about this before, but just in what we love and hate about technology is I have to really make a conscious effort to stay up to date on what capabilities, integrations, innovations there are in the technology space. I mean, you saw what Apple came out with. There's so many things that are happening that's all driven by like underlying technology platform syntax that I need to start making a conscious effort to work into my growth and development, which I know is not necessarily what you and I are talking about with growth and development, but it's really important to being a great leader in these spaces.
It actually it is in a way because I would say it's your professional development,
right?
And you're going to have to implement some sort of habit probably to it. So yeah, I would definitely include that in there. Okay. And the main thing I really want you to say, and you really I almost like think about this for July through September, start thinking through what are all the things going on. And so in your business as usual now, you have marathon training. You have things that you're doing that you have to think about when you're adding new things. And so this next page is for you to really kind of see, all right, where am I going to be on this scale? And then start processing through what percentage of time am I giving to my growth and development. You can think about this in a day, or you can think about it in a week, or you can think about it in a month.
Okay.
Probably for you, day or week would probably make the most sense.
Okay. And just so I'm following along too, I think, and there's a method to the sequence too, because I think this is going to be really important to. So like to me, I'm 100% BAU right now. Let's just say hypothetically, I'm sure there's some stuff, but as I automate, eliminate, delegate, that's going to free up some space, and then that's kind of like a conversational point along with all the other goals and things I'm pursuing to try to back into what's left for growth and development, and then we'll kind of figure out what things are most important for my growth and development, and then 100% BAU.
100%. That's why I did that right before this.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
Okay, so that's that, and that leads into now you're thinking about your future goals. Now, this might be things you're currently working on, but it's mainly you're thinking about next quarter. Is there anything changing? Are you continuing something? So you could, for this one, you can say, all right, still have my marathon training, and you're just kind of mapping out a little bit of what's going on for Q4. And the same stuff you had before on the goal setting part and really processing through that and mapping it out. And so this is what concludes the quarterly review. You're ending it with, okay, here's what I want to work on. But also you notice one of the things that is happening for the quarterly review is you're not only thinking about next quarter, you're dreaming about the next 2 quarters. And so the idea is that you're also, even in this one, just dream a little bit. Okay, what are some goals I want to do not only for Q4 but also Q1 and Q2? You don't have to have it clean and crisp, but it's good to kind of say, what's going to happen in Q1 and Q2? Anything going to change? Anything I'm trying to do? Okay, probably, am I getting married that month? You can start processing through those things. And
It's weird when you say it to me. It's weird when you say it aloud. Like, I do have to do that.
But so that's what's helpful, and it's going to be good for you to be able. So you can even draw a line like, okay, Q1, Q2, and it might be scarce down here, but here's why I love it is because as you go through future, you can go back to this and say, okay, what did I think about back then? Okay, now that's not relevant, but this is and this is. Cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you just want to dream a little bit. Okay, so that's the last thing for quarterly. And yearly, it's just one page. And this is something I really want to encourage you to do. I'm serious, Steven. This is for real. I think you could potentially skip this over, and I don't want you to skip it over.
Okay.
All right? Plan a trip to celebrate the year. I'm serious. This is for real. At least a day.
You know, it's like, couldn't have planned this any worse, but is it okay if that's attached to one of my goals?
Oh my goodness.
I think what I'm hearing is an additional trip.
I mean, probably. I think you need at least 24 hours. And here's the thing. The reason why I say plan a trip is because sometimes when we plan trips, this can get lost. And I don't want you to skip over this stuff. And so I want you to have a trip where you're actually celebrating the year. Now, I think you need it. Bringing friends and families, I think, could be cool with this. So that's something you can think about as well. You can make it a little bit more adventurous, but on the trip, I want you to review the 4 quarters. I think you should have people there when you're viewing, like almost like you're giving like a 30-minute talk. Like, hey, I just want to celebrate with y'all this year. Like, here's some of the wins that I had. Here's kind of like as I reflected on losses. Here's what I didn't like about it. Here are the growth opportunities, and then here's what I'm thinking for next year, bro. First of all, anybody who's there is going to be hella inspired. Mm-hmm. They're going to be like, "What the hell are you doing? This is crazy. I need to do this for my life." But it's doing more for you than for them because it's helping you refresh yourself for everything you've been through, and it gives you excitement for what you're doing looking forward in the future. And so this is something I really want you to prioritize because this is what's going to make just everything you've gone through in a year so worth it because we don't celebrate ourselves enough. And I want you to be able to celebrate the things that you have accomplished. You had wins and losses, but you're celebrating it all. And I think to be able to culminate all of it together, bro, you're going to be like, this is awesome.
My brain's running, man. I love the idea. And again, as much as I talk about it in like somewhat of a bad light, like I would love the opportunity to get my friends and family together. And this sounds wrong, but with the center of attention being to celebrate the accomplishments, the losses. Because again, I think it's easy for us to like feel like it's just our lives, but there's not a single thing I do that's just for me. Mm-hmm. I really believe that, and I think this is just it's just such a great example of something we run past and then we don't remember what we were doing in 2015. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure I'm going to remember what I was doing when I have this.
100%. And you have the data to show it. And this is where I get excited about helping people on the growth journey is because I'm able to show my journey way more clearly and then help them see their journey way more clearly, which people have a hard time doing. And stuff like this, I think this is Grow That Club. I want everybody to be able to do stuff like this because the value is incredible. Think about it, you get together with your family and you start doing stuff like this and sharing these things with clarity, and then they're going to start thinking like, man, how do I get more clarity on my year? And then that's where it starts. And when we talk about like, leading and influencing, this is part of the influence. It's not in this trip. It's what you're doing in the midst to be able to talk about this stuff. They don't see you reflecting daily. They don't see you prioritizing your week. They don't see you going after your goals, but you're able to interpret that you're doing something different than they are just based upon the celebration. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
So like I see this as, yes, it's reviewing and it's refreshing for your year, but it's also a place where you can influence the people around you.
That's exciting, man. I'm excited for this. That's cool. And I think as I say that too, it's another great way to hold myself accountable in doing the actual work that you just referenced. Because that's the special sauce, right? That's where the consistency is going to pay off. It's going to be hard, and I'm really excited about it.
I love it. So perfection on this, I'm not going after perfection. I don't think you need to be perfect, but I do think the more you do it, the better you're going to enjoy it. And so I'll definitely get you a digital version. I think you'll like it on the iPad, and you have that. If you want to use that, you can kind of play with it. But, bro, we did it.
I'm super excited for this, man. Like this is like that piece that I keep annoying you about.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you do this? Hey, what does the process look like? Hey, and I love that you call them rituals.
Yeah,
that's honestly how it should be. Ah,
it's great.
Thank you, man. This has been so helpful.
100%. So
I have so much work to do.
like we all do.
The thought just continues to cross my mind, and again, like I mentioned it with the reading too, but like you can't come across something related to growth. Everything that you and I have talked about, it takes so much work, time, effort, but you have to have it, and you have to think about it, and you have to plan it, and you have to execute on it. I'm excited to do it, and I know that you don't care about this part too, but like I always look at you as someone I want to make proud too. Like it's important to me that I don't waste your time, and everything that you've given me really gives me an additional layer of confidence to be able to deliver.
Let's go. I love that, man. You've crushed this, and you've been awesome through this whole process to be able to take in a lot of this information, try to figure out what does this look like in my life. I mean, you've done an incredible job. So kind of closing up, and then we'll close with your statements. But before then, I just want to hear, you going to use your last one?
I was going to give it to you. I wanted to give it to you. This is my memento.
I love it.
Which word are you?
This is great. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. I'm struggling right now. I just started getting anxiety.
Hey, growth happens in your most uncomfortable moments.
Is this growth?
No, it's a step backwards. Here, give it. I'm gonna keep this forever.
Dude, you should. I mean, first of all, you've done a great job. You remember, we need to cut it to the other episode where you're like, oh, this is going to be hard. Well, you did it.